Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Freddie. It's been a while. Let me go ahead and just play what's going on here. This is kind of like where my head is at the moment. It's just kind of like utilizing a lot of hardware and like modular stuff, and then I'll kind of talk about like how I kind of patch this stuff and what's going on, basically. So let's go ahead and play it out for real quick. Yeah, just a little jam out session. So basically, this is kind of like I said, where my head is at is like I kind of made the jump into trying to build a modular rack. Um, and then this is kind of like the first stages of it. I can see myself expanding later, but after so many years of just kind of researching stuff and like debating in my head what if I should even go to modular, would I really benefit from it, and I use tools like VCV Rack, which is like a virtual rack, modular rack synth that you can really learn from. It's especially like signal flow and how things work. I finally made the jump into like purchasing a few units. Arturio was really kind enough to send me the Mini Brute 2 as well as the Rack Brute, the 3U unit. And basically, that kind of just started it off. And I live really close to Perfect Circuit, which is here in like LA, Burbank area. And those guys have been really helpful as far as, stuff that I would kind of benefit from. So most of the modules you see here are more like audio signal processing units, and not so much like tone generators or anything like that. I mean, I do have a couple that I can kind of like go through. And I haven't really decided on like sound sources or like tone generators, only because I'm more into like using samples and stuff. So I wanted to really focus on that side of the modular stuff rather than me making sounds from scratch in a way. So I also wanted to utilize the semi-modular stuff that I already had, like the Mini Brute 2 and the Behringer Model D, as sound sources. The Model D is basically like a mini Moog Model D clone for the most part. The Digitac, Electron Digitac is, I pretty much program all the drums on there still. For the longest time, I was using it kind of like MPC style, where I would try to chop samples or like make loops and then put drums over it. But since I got more into the modular stuff, this has become like more of a tool to help kind of control other pieces of hardware, which is great, because it was kind of in limbo for a little bit. And then once I got into the modular stuff, I use this thing a hell of a lot more. But I'll kind of show you kind of like the signal path of what's going on. The mixer is just to mix all the signals together. I also have a multi effects pedal here. It's like a guitar pedal, but it's like you can chain a bunch of different effects together. I think up to 4 effects at a time, and kind of turn them on and off and adjust the parameters. And then the SPs, I'm just running everything through the SP as well, just for effects for the most part. I don't really use it for like making beats or anything like that. The Model D, if you heard the beat, I'm mainly using that as to make a bass line. And then the kind of like synthy sound that you heard, like that melodical kind of sequence synthy sound, that's all coming from actually one of these modules here. It's the Erica Synth Pico voice. So it has like, I believe like 8 different sounds that it can generate. And then to basically trigger all those sounds or play that melodical thing, I sequence something on the mini brute, and then it's just playing that sequence to the Pico voice. And then the Pico voice, the output of that is going to Mutable Instruments Cloud. This is a cloned version of it. And the clouds is basically just like kind of like an effects processor in a way. Kind of like a delay. It's like the weird kind of delay, if I could put it simply. And then the output of that gets routed to Make Noises Maths, which is, I still haven't really wrapped my head around it, but if you watch Once Upon a Synths tutorial on maths, it kind of like breaks it down of how it actually works. It uses different mathematical algorithms to kind of manipulate the sound in a way. And then one of the outputs of that goes to this Erica Synth Pico DSP, which is basically an effects processor. I'm basically just running a delay through it. But it has a few other effects on it, like reverb and some other stuff on there. And then also another output of this is going to this qubit nebulae. The nebulae is basically, at its core, is a granulated sampler. So it kind of works how the Ableton kind of stretch, how it warps like samples. It works similar, meaning like you can have samples on here, and you can adjust the speed and the pitch independently. But it's also very versatile, this unit. It's not just a granulated sampler. It's also it also generates a tone. Has I think like 5 different modes or something like that, and you can also run effects. Have this as an effects processor. So right now it's running as an effects processor. Running from an in from the maths, and then I think I have like reverb and delay coming out, and that gets fed out through this, which is the multi-effects processor, and I have like a wah like pedal programmed on here, as well as a delay and like this ensemble kind of chorus effect, and then finally it goes into the mixer and out to the speakers. Here I can kind of solo, so you can kind of hear what that sounds like. Let's start from the beginning here. And then the clock source is basically the Digitac. This, through MIDI, this kind of gets routed appropriately, so it can trigger the Model D as well as the Mini Brute. And then the Mini Brute also works right now as a MIDI to CV converter. So it takes all the MIDI data basically, and then with these patch points, I'm able to patch out CV information to the modules here. So again, this is like the sound source, this Pico voice, and then this is basically running the sequence that you're hearing. These are just different effects that kind of give it that sound. And then this is another thing coming from the Pico voice, but it's going through maths. So it kind of gives this different sound. So let's play that. Like a more kind of synthesized sound. And you can adjust the rise and fall of these of like how the effect is. And then when you combine those two, it's the same signal pretty much running into maths, but the way it's kind of manipulated within maths, it has 2 separate outputs. So this is the same signal, but it's just running through 2 different things pretty much. Yeah, and then the drums basically are all programmed in the Digitac. And then the mixer itself actually has its own DSP, it has its own effects, so you can run like different effects through it, like reverb. It's pretty decent actually for like a just like a regular style kind of audio mixer. I also have this right here, which is the Expressive E Touche, which is an expressive pedal, or with your hand. You can kind of do cool things with it along with the software. But it also has, this particular model has CV outs, so I can adjust certain things that have CV inputs. So say we play this. See, it adjusts the pitch basically for this one. You can do stuff like that. You can also put it into something like here. Is this the right one? I don't know if you can hear it. It kind of changes the density of clouds. You can plug this into a lot of things here. Same with this DSP. Yeah. So you can do some cool stuff with that. And then, like I said, the SP is just basically like for effect. Yeah. But yeah, this is kind of like where my head is at the moment, like getting into modular. This unit just below the Digitac, this is a Korg SQ1, and it's basically a step sequencer. But I can sync the clock with it, or it can run its own clock basically. But I can sync it to this whole stuff, and then it has CV and gate outputs. So usually I'll patch this to like a sampler like the Nebula, and then it'll play like say if I have like a hi-hat one shot, it'll play that one shot. I can usually put it random, but it'll play that one shot within like 16 notes, and then I can adjust the pitch of that hi-hat, and then you can kind of get some crazy sounds as far as like percussive stuff goes. I think this is great for like percussive stuff. And like I said, the Nebula is also a sampler, so I can play some beats on here where I use the Nebula as a sampler. Let's go ahead and just listen to this beat one more time before I turn it off. But yeah, here, let's go ahead and just mute all this other stuff. Let's go ahead and open up a beat where I kind of use the Nebula as like a sampler. Hopefully this is the right one. Yeah, here. Yeah, I can kind of quickly show you how I patch that stuff. So let me just go into sampler mode. You can do this by pushing down the speed button and then selecting the things at the bottom here. And it'll kind of reboot. The Nebula is actually like this. When I first got it, I saw that there was like a Raspberry Pi connected to it. So I think they did most of their programming through, I think, Pure Data, if you guys are familiar with that. Pure Data, and it's basically kind of like how they program a lot of things. But yeah, so basically a computer attached to a computer in a way. But it's a really versatile module. And since I run a lot of like my main focus is sampling, then it'll it's good for me. Let's see, this is coming out of here. So just to kind of give you a quick demonstration of what's going on here. So this is like a sample basically. Just do all this. And I'm able to, let me just, here's the start point. And I think that is it. I need to patch. Let's just take that out of there. And you can adjust the start point of the sample as well as the size of like kind of like the loop. So you can come up with, and the keys right here are just triggering certain start points within the sample. So let's go ahead and pick a different sample here. Here's something from MSX. And you can adjust the speed of the sample. And you can make it go in reverse. You can adjust the pitch of the sample. But you can do cool stuff like this. And let's pick a different file here. See, these are all like different, pretty much like if you look at it, different chops. And this is kind of what I chopped on here. So that's what you're hearing on this. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, this is kind of, like I said, where my head is at right now, kind of getting into modular stuff. Like eventually I'll kind of get more into like tone generators and like filters and stuff like that. But for right now, I kind of want to focus on more audio signal processing. If you guys are into modular and you feel like there's a module out there that my sound would benefit from, let me know. Like I've been doing my own research, looked at all the mutable instrument stuff as well as the IntelliGel stuff and like, of course, make noise and stuff like that. But if there's other like, companies or, modules out there you think my sound would benefit from, like I said, I do a lot of audio signal processing. And, I'm not really about the blips and bloops that you kind of associate with modular synths, stuff like Richard Devine and like all those other guys they do. I'm more into like if I was going to say, if I related to some of the modular people, I would say I'd be more on the ambient side of things, where they kind of create like soundscapes and stuff. I really enjoy listening to that stuff, but not so much like the crazy glitchiness and stuff like that. Maybe I have an appreciation for it, but it's not something that I wouldn't make. But yeah, this is kind of like I want to get away from the computer for a while, and then just kind of jam out. What's cool about this is you kind of make something in the moment, and if you don't record it, basically, then you forget it. Basically, that's why it's good to have like I think I have a portable recorder right there, and then I can just like record something like an idea real quick. This is really great for sketching out ideas like on the fly really quick. But, like, it's not for everybody. Like, if you're just kind of, like, getting into making beats, this might be a little bit over your head. Maybe just stick to something that you kind of know and then learn along the way. Like I said, VCV Rack is a good a place to start. It's basically a virtual rack that you can download onto your computer and then learn pretty much everything about, like, modular, but more in a virtual setting. Of course, SoftTube has one, but it's not free. You have to pay for the modules. And then, you can go on forums and watch a bunch of YouTube videos like I did. I'm still like in the learning process. Luckily, like I said, I live pretty close to Perfect Circuit. So I go down there and I ask a bunch of questions as well as, I can play with modules before I think about, incorporating it into my own like, rack, as well as, what was I going to say? You can go to modulargrid.net and build your own case and see if that works for you. And yeah, but I would highly recommend doing VCV rack just so you can kind of get used to the idea of signal flow and all this other stuff. But yeah, that's kind of like where my head is at right now. I'll come up with like some more videos soon, just some other patches that I kind of created and some other beats and stuff like that. All right, thanks for tuning in, guys. Oh, by the way, my album Beyond the Sea of Trees comes out on Jakarta Records on May 24th. It's will be available digitally through all the streaming, Spotify, iTunes, as well as we have a double vinyl LP that you can pre-order and purchase through Jakarta. You can go to my Bandcamp, freddiejoachim.bandcamp.com, do the pre-order there. It'll also be available like through Fat Beats and like a bunch of other retailers once it comes out. And then we do have 2 singles out at the moment from the album. One just dropped last Friday, which is called Serenade. You can check it out on iTunes or Spotify. And then the first single that we dropped was called Backyards, featuring Natalie Oliveri. And that is also available on all platforms pretty much. But yeah, May 24th, Beyond the Sea of Trees, Jakarta Records. I did all the music for it. All right, peace.